Welcome to HardScript.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. The dinner was her idea. A quiet night with friends, nothing fancy. Home-cooked pasta, cheap red wine, and conversation we'd all pretend wasn't strained. I didn't want to go. I almost didn't, but something told me to be there. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was routine. Or maybe I already knew what was coming. We arrived late. She blamed traffic. I blamed her makeup mirror and the text she was still answering in the passenger seat. Her best friend Claire opened the door. Too cheerful. Hug lingered just a second longer than normal. I caught it. The kind of hug people give before impact. The house smelled like rosemary and tension. Dinner was slow. Small talk drowned in the sound of clinking forks. Laughter came a little too late after every joke. I watched her carefully. She looked radiant, but distracted. Eyes moving too much. Smile just a little tight. Nails tapping the stem of her wine glass like a timer. Claire poured herself another glass. Then another. And just before dessert, she put her glass down and said the words that shattered everything. "Are you going to tell him, or should I?" The table went silent. No one blinked. My wife didn't look at me. Didn't move. Claire turned to me slow, apologetic, but not regretful. "She's been seeing someone, Michael, for a while. I thought it was a phase. But it's not. And I can't sit through another meal pretending I don't know." No one breathed. Not even me. My wife finally spoke. Not denial. Not anger. Just a whisper. "You don't understand." But she was wrong. I understood more than she thought. Because I hadn't touched her in weeks. And I wasn't angry. I was relieved. Relieved that my silence was finally matched with truth. The dinner didn't explode. It dissolved. Everyone left early. And when the door closed, she followed me into the kitchen. Asked if I was going to yell. I didn't. Because yelling implies confusion. And I wasn't confused anymore. I knew exactly what I was dealing with. A liar who wasn't sorry. Just exposed. She cried that night. Not the kind of crying that asks for forgiveness. The kind that begs for time. She asked me to talk. To explain what I was feeling. But I had no words left. She used them all when she lied. I sat in the living room while she paced in the hallway, whispering on her phone. I knew who it was. Probably him. Maybe Claire. Didn't matter. The moment her betrayal became public, everything shifted. The story was no longer hers to contain. It belonged to the silence. And silence never lies. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of rage. I wasn't raging. I was watching. Every detail. Every excuse. Every move she made trying to regain control of a situation she had buried for months. She made coffee the next morning like nothing happened. Put on makeup. Left early for work. Didn't say goodbye. I didn't need one. Because the goodbye had already happened. She just hadn't noticed. I started paying attention to the gaps. The lunches she never ate. The places she said she'd been. The names she didn't mention anymore. And it all started to make sense. The weekend trips with her cousin. The sudden need for privacy on a shared phone plan. The new password on her laptop. None of it was random. None of it was casual. It was constructed. And now that I had seen the cracks, I realized they were never cracks at all. They were exits. She'd been leaving me in pieces. I just hadn't known I was being dismantled. Claire texted me later that week. Said she was sorry. That she never meant to get involved. But she had to say something. I thanked her. Not with words. With silence. Because Claire didn't betray me. She just broke the illusion I was stupid enough to protect. And now? Now I didn't feel the need to fix anything. I wasn't interested in screaming or proving I was right. I was interested in becoming untouchable. She had hidden the truth in plain sight. Used laughter, routine, and just enough affection to keep me distracted. But when the lies surfaced in front of witnesses, the performance ended. Now it was just her. And me. But only for a little while longer. Because my silence? That wasn't pain. It was planning. I never asked her for the full story. Because I already knew it. Not through words. Through patterns. She underestimated the weight of routine. Forgot that I noticed everything. How her tone changed when she said his name. How she used to smile when she typed, then stopped. How she always turned her phone face down when we were on the couch. People don't hide lies. They hide habits. And once I knew what to look for, it was all right there. I found the trail in the most ordinary places. A hotel key card in the drawer beneath our winter coats. 2 wine glasses in the backseat of her car. An Uber ride receipt that didn't match her story. I didn't confront her. I photographed it. Logged it. Made copies. Not for revenge. Foreclosure. Not hers, mine. I tracked the payments. Subscriptions to apps she never used around me. Random charges labeled spa and cities she never visited. A sudden cash withdrawal the exact day she said she was with her mom. It wasn't clumsy. It was strategic. She built an alibi over time. Layered her lies like insulation, enough to keep me warm but never close. And I had bought into it. Until I started peeling it back. The deeper I went, the colder it got. I found a folder on her laptop she thought was hidden. Photos. Conversations. A timestamped message from him. Last night was perfect. I still smell you on my hands. I sat in silence for an hour after reading that. Not crying. Not breaking things. Just breathing. Because this wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was inventory. I wasn't losing a wife. I was removing a liability. That night, she asked if I wanted to go out for dinner. I said I had work. She didn't push. She never did when she was guilty. And that told me everything I needed. The woman I loved no longer existed. She had been replaced by a mask. One that smiled during family photos and kissed me after betrayal. And I had been kissing it back, thinking it was real. But now? Now I knew better. I didn't leave. Not yet. I wanted her to feel safe. Because the quieter I moved, the harder the fall would hit. And I was done warning people who were planning my humiliation. I left without packing. Not forever. Just enough to shift the gravity. One Friday morning, I didn't come home after work. I booked a small Airbnb across town. No windows facing the street. No name on the mailbox. Silent. The next morning, my phone lit up. 5 missed calls. Then 10. Then a voicemail. Where are you? This isn't funny. I didn't respond. Because when someone lies for months, panic isn't punishment. It's a mirror. And she was finally seeing herself in mine. She called Claire. That much I knew. Claire didn't answer either. It wasn't planned. But it was perfect. By Saturday, she started texting apologies. Not full confessions, just fragments. I know I messed up. I just need to talk. This doesn't have to end like this. But she was wrong. It already had. It ended the night she gave someone else what was supposed to be mine. Now all I was doing was making the ending official. I shut down our shared accounts. Moved my savings. Froze the credit card she used. No warnings. No labels. Just action. She tried logging into our Netflix account that night. Locked. She tried texting me again. Blocked. By Sunday, she drove to my office. I watched her from inside the building as she stood in the parking lot, pretending she wasn't unraveling. She waited 20 minutes, then drove away. No message. Just silence. And for the first time, I felt peace. Because I had spent so long trying to protect a relationship built on her lies, I forgot how much power there is in simply disappearing. Not from the world. From her world. That was the difference. I didn't isolate. I extracted. She wanted chaos. Confrontation. Something dramatic she could twist into sympathy. I gave her none of it. Just distance. Cold. Measured. Strategic. And while she sat in the home we built, scrolling through a contact list that was shrinking by the day, I was watching the sun rise from a balcony she didn't know existed. Drinking coffee she didn't brew. Smiling in silence she couldn't interrupt. Because disappearing isn't about punishment. It's about peace. And peace was the one thing she could never give me. So I gave it to myself. He didn't know I knew. That's how I wanted it. The man she had risked everything for, he walked like someone untouchable. Confident. Smug. That told me enough. He wasn't new to this. And she wasn't his first. But I wasn't here to confront him. I was here to study him. People like him, they leave trails. Not just in phones or hotels. In habits. In arrogance. I found his name buried in old tax records. A consulting business registered to an address that didn't match his LinkedIn. Suspicious activity flagged under a shell company with 2 silent partners, one of which had a history of financial violations. It was all public. Just hidden under layers of fake professionalism. The kind of dirt that doesn't scream until it lands in the right inbox. So I packaged it. No signature. No threats. Just a manila envelope. And I made sure it ended up exactly where it needed to. The internal ethics office of the company that paid him. He didn't lose his job that week. But something shifted. Suddenly his social media got quieter. His networking events stopped getting posted. And she noticed. Because whatever fantasy she was sold began to shrink in her hands. The man she cheated for wasn't the man she thought he was. He was just louder than me. Until he wasn't. One night, she texted from the house, "Can we talk?" I read it. Didn't respond. Because I knew what it meant. Not guilt. Not clarity. Panic. Her safety net had holes. And I hadn't even touched it. I didn't need to. When people build empires on secrecy, the smallest nudge can bring it all down. That was my move. Not revenge. Exposure. I didn't scream my worth. I let their illusion rot from the inside. That weekend, I got a call from a blocked number. Didn't answer. I was hiking alone. Out of reach. Phone off. Mind clear. And somewhere in the city, a woman who once whispered to another man in my bed was beginning to realize she had picked a storm over a harbor. But storms always pass. And I was becoming weatherproof. She tried to rebuild. Little things. Posts online that hinted at happiness. Selfies with captions like healing and growth. Mutual friends tagged in old photos, memories recycled like currency. But it didn't land. Because something was different now. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her energy was performative. And people noticed. Not because I said anything, but because I didn't. The silence around me became its own kind of rumor. People asked where I'd gone. I let them wonder. And in that wonder, her story started falling apart. One night, a mutual friend messaged me. She told us you were controlling. That you shut down emotionally. I didn't defend myself. Didn't send receipts or screenshots. I just said, you believe what makes sense to you. And suddenly, it didn't make sense anymore. Because if I was the villain, why did she look lost? Why was she alone? Why did her story change depending on who asked? Social circles tighten fast when integrity cracks. And hers had split wide open. At a colleague's birthday dinner, I was told she showed up alone. I scanning the room, laughing a little too loud. And someone who once believed her, leaned over and whispered, "You really thought no one would notice?" That's the moment it started collapsing. Not from scandal. From absence. I wasn't there. I wasn't texting mutuals. I wasn't asking to be heard. And somehow, that was louder than anything she could say. She texted me the next morning. "Can we talk like adults?" I muted the thread. Not blocked, just silent. Because she didn't deserve access. Not anymore. I changed gyms. Changed routes. Stopped shopping at the grocery store where we once ran into neighbors. My world got smaller, more private. And hers? Hers got quieter. Not peaceful. Just empty. Because you don't notice who loves you until they're not holding space for you anymore. And when the room starts whispering your name in past tense, that's when the weight sets in. I didn't embarrass her. She did that on her own. And I didn't need to say a word. Because the truth? It doesn't need a spotlight. It only needs patience. And I had more than enough. Her world began to fold in. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. But slowly, like fabric losing its shape. Mutual friends stopped calling her back. Family members grew quiet in group chats. Her sister, who once adored her, stopped liking her posts. She noticed. Because she had built herself around attention. And now attention was something she couldn't buy with apologies. Meanwhile, I was still gone. Not in hiding, just untouchable. My new apartment was clean. Sparse. Mine. No traces of the past. I redecorated my routines the way you repaint a house before someone else moves in. Only this time, no one was moving in. I needed silence more than I needed closure. I'd started reading again. Lifting heavier. Sleeping deeper. Healing doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like muscle. One night, I walked past a restaurant we used to visit. She was there. Alone. Scrolling her phone like it held answers. She didn't see me. I didn't stop. That was the moment I knew I'd won. Not out of pride. Out of peace. She had spent months constructing a fantasy where she leaves, explores, experiments, then returns to the man who'd still be there. But I wasn't. Not emotionally. Not physically. Not digitally. I was gone in a way that even GPS couldn't track. She called my brother the next day. Asked if I was okay. He said I was better than ever. And that's what broke her. Not that I was gone. That I had evolved. Without her. She sent me a long email that night. Pages of half-truths wrapped in guilt and sentiment. I didn't delete it. I archived it. Because some chapters aren't meant to be read again. They're meant to be stored as proof that you made it through. She kept reaching texts, photos, old memories. All of it bounced off the wall I had built with her silence. And for the first time, she stood where I used to. In confusion. In distance. In cold. Only difference? I didn't put her there. She walked into it. Because when you break something quiet, the echo always comes back louder. It was inevitable. She showed up. One evening, as I unlocked the door to my building, I saw her reflection in the glass. Hair tied back. Eyes swollen. Voice rehearsed. Michael, please. I didn't flinch. Just held the door open without a word. Not to invite her in. To make a point. She followed. To my floor. To my new space. A space she'd never touched. She looked around. Tried to smile. This is nice, she said, as if we were still allowed to pretend. I stood still. She paced. I know I messed up. I know I broke everything. But you just disappeared. She paused. Expected something. An outburst. A breakdown. A fight. I gave her none of it. I sat on the armrest of the couch. Arms crossed. Breathing slow. She looked smaller now. Like her confidence had been burned down to ash. I didn't come here to argue, she added. But the tremble in her voice betrayed her. She came for control. And I was no longer available for that. She reached into her bag, pulled out a photo, us, at the coast, before the lies. I kept this, she whispered. I didn't take it. Didn't even look. She placed it on the table, hoping it would soften me. It didn't. Because I remembered the version of her that smiled in that photo. And she didn't exist anymore. She kept talking. About therapy. About mistakes. About the way she still dreamed of me sometimes. But dreams are cheap. And I was no longer interested in discounts. I just want us to try again, she said, finally cracking. But we weren't us anymore. We were a warning. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out over the city that somehow kept turning even when my world stopped. Then I said the only thing that mattered. There is no try. She froze. Not because of what I said, but how I said it. Calm. Detached. Final. She waited for more. I offered none. Because this was never about revenge. It was about exit. And I had already left. The door behind her stayed open. She took the hint. Walked out slowly. No slam. No goodbye. Just a woman finally realizing that the man she thought would always be there was already gone. After she left that night, she didn't reach out again. Not for a week. But I heard things. Whispers. From people who didn't mean to talk, but couldn't help themselves. The man she had chosen over me? Gone. No job. No future. Just a disconnected number and a reputation that wouldn't stop bleeding. She tried spinning it. Told people it was mutual. Said she needed time to focus on herself. But truth has a scent. And hers reeked of desperation. A month passed. Then another. She stopped posting photos. Stopped showing up to the places that once made her feel admired. Her phone calls got shorter. Her inbox emptier. The spotlight had moved on. Because sympathy runs dry when the lies outlast the excuses. One evening, I saw her again. From across the street. Standing outside the cafe where we first met. Same scarf. Same look in her eyes. Like she was trying to rewind something already buried. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and chose not to. Either way, it didn't matter. Because I didn't pause. I walked past, steady. And in that moment, I realized what she had become. A ghost. Not haunting me, but haunted by what she lost. She had chosen chaos over quiet. Noise over loyalty. And now all she had left was silence. Not mine, hers. I didn't destroy her life. She did that by betting on someone who valued thrill over truth. She thought I was the fallback plan. She didn't understand. I had no plans to fall. My world had reshaped. New routines. New circles. Even new joy. Not performative. Not reactive. Real. She was no longer part of it. And that was the difference. She still held the memory of us like a lifeline. I had turned mine into a lesson. Not to trust less, but to listen more to the silences, the pauses, the shifts in tone. Because love doesn't lie. But people do. And when they do it with a steady hand, it's not a mistake. It's math. She calculated my tolerance. And miscalculated my exit. Now she knew. People don't always scream when they're done. Sometimes they just stop returning. There's something final about the absence of noise. Not the silence after an argument. The silence when there's no more argument to have. That's where I landed. Not bitter. Not victorious. Just clean. One morning, I received a letter. Handwritten. Long shaky script. From her. No return address. No envelope perfume. Just words. She wrote about dreams. About how she thought I'd come back eventually. How she assumed I'd cool off. She said she missed my steadiness. My calm. My silence. Said she couldn't sleep without it now. That line stuck. Because she never valued my silence when she had it. She called it distance. Now she called it home. That's the thing about some people. They don't want you. They want your peace. Your grounding. your gravity, until they mistake it for passivity and break it. Then they want it back. But peace doesn't come back when summoned. It stays where it's protected. I didn't respond to the letter. Didn't burn it either. I folded it once. Filed it away. Not for revenge. For remembrance. A record that I once loved someone enough to walk away. Not in anger. In clarity. She reached out one last time. Not directly. Through a friend. She asked if I'd be open to one final conversation. Not to get back together. Just to understand. I declined. Not because I lacked compassion. Because I no longer owed her my story. I wasn't angry anymore. Just unavailable. Because some people need you to shout before they believe you've left. But I never needed volume. I just needed the door to close. Now I live a quieter life. Not lonely. Just intentional. There are new faces now. New streets. New habits. But none of them carry her fingerprints. And that's how I know I'm healed. Because I didn't need closure. I became it. The last thing I ever said to her? Nothing. But if I had, it would have been this. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. And somehow, that silence was the loudest thing she ever heard. Been through it? When they crossed a line and you made sure they felt it.